I've made significant progress on my assembler lately. In fact, it's almost done. There are a few things it doesn't do, and one pretty important thing it doesn't do is actually write an output file. Otherwise, it does most of the assembly work. It handles labels and finds their addresses. The problem I've got right now is it takes about 4 hours to assemble it. And that can be a real bummer if I have a typo in the source code. It could be 3 to 4 hours before I find out. Typically it is 4 hours before I find out because I usually let this go and come back and deal with it later. But the ironic thing here is because the assembler is as far as it is, I can actually use it to check for errors in my source code before I actually run the assembler. As you'll see here, it doesn't exactly take 4 hours, and it does enough work here to completely error check the source, like I said. Now I've got it so that it more or less displays exactly what the basic assembler displays, so you can sort of see the speed difference here. Nothing is optimized yet, of course, and quite a bit of speed is dedicated to writing to the screen. But just to make a fair comparison here, you can see how much faster this runs than the basic one. And it's doing almost exactly the same thing. Uh, for speed comparison, it's identical enough. Especially in the first pass where the file doesn't actually get written. I haven't timed this. I suppose I could have had a stopwatch going here while this is running. But at this point, with the basic assembler, we're several, probably hour and a half into it already here. Maybe an hour. I think there are 900 lines. So we're roughly a quarter of the way through it right now. So I suppose that would be about an hour. In a matter of minute here. I didn't keep track, but it's definitely less than 2 minutes, I think. Probably around 2 minutes. The slowest part of this is, of course, the disk access. The 1541 Commodore disk drive is notoriously slow. I do have a fast load cartridge, which helps a little bit. But no matter how fast I get my assembler here, there's still going to be several minutes worth of assembling just due to the disk access. Here we're nearing the end of the first pass. And normally in BASIC, the end of the first pass happens about 2 hours in. Right there's the end of the first pass. Most of the typographical errors would have been caught by now, other than label names. Of course, if I mistype a label name, it will effectively be two different labels, so one will not be found. And that would be caught in the second pass. So I do have to run both passes here just for error checking. Obviously, I still have to do a lot of debugging, especially with the amount of code I've been adding and the amount of time I've been adding it. Debugging has been pretty tedious, but at least I don't have to spend 4 hours, or waste, I should say, 4 hours assembling just to find out I made a typographical error that the assembler wouldn't have completed. At least now I can get to the point where the 4 hours is well spent assembling the file, and I don't have to worry about it stopping 30 minutes in or something and not knowing about it. Obviously, if I make programming errors, then I find out the hard way and have to go back and edit again, which means another 4 hour assembly time. But doing what I'm doing here saves an awful lot of time. Probably about 5 minutes in here. Roughly 3/4 finished. This pass will be a lot slower once disk writing is implemented. And of course, once I take the screen writing out, it's going to be almost constant disk access. So maybe at that point it will be about the same speed it is now. And there we are at the end. No errors, which means I can confidently run the basic assembler and get a decent result for debugging. So there it is. At the rate I'm going here, in another week or so, the assembler should be able to assemble itself complete, and I won't have to use the basic assembler anymore. But there's no guarantee I'll be able to keep up my current progress.